Today's video is a little bit more of a special one because we're doing a guide on Headless Horseman, how to spawn him properly. We even got a map for you guys of where all the locations are, and even how to defeat Headless Horseman. So if you do enjoy this type of content, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all type of stuff. And let's get into the Headless Horseman stuff, shall we? So there are some badges behind this boss, which we will talk about later in the video, but let's go over how you can even spawn him and whatnot. So to be able to spawn him, you have to go to Howling Lands in Darkmoor. But to be able to interact with the pumpkins and whatnot, you have to have already finished Howling Lands in the storyline. So that means you can't just teleport a level 1 to Howling Lands and then interact with all the pumpkins and summon the boss. It wasn't working in Test Realm. This could be changed in Live Realm, of course, it's very possible. But when I did this in Test Realm, when I did bring another character that was an alt, it would not let me interact with it even though he was 170. But I didn't quest with them or in Darkmoor, I mean, when Darkmoor came out and whatnot. I didn't do that, so it wouldn't let me interact with the pumpkins. So once you finish the whole quest line of Darkmoor, at least done with Howling Lands, you can go back in here and look around for these pumpkins. Now these pumpkins, how it works is only one spawns per realm, and the timer, I don't know exactly how long it takes for it to respawn. It used to be instant within the first week, but it was slowly adjusted over time, and it took around like 8 minutes or something like that to find another pumpkin to respawn. So whenever you do finish Headless Horseman and you end up killing him, you can look around for another pumpkin, but what I would honestly recommend is just going into another realm right afterwards and looking for another pumpkin head. It's more efficient that way, especially if you're trying to farm all the things that he drops, because he does drop the mount that which a lot of people are wanting, as well as he does drop his hat. You can wear this new Headless Horseman hat that he drops, and it is farmable from him because we know that it's dropped from here, as well as we know that the mount is also dropped from here due to people already having it back in Test Realm. So there is that. There is confirmed drops that these do drop from here. And when it comes to the map, I already made a graphic of where all the heads spawn. It's very possible that I possibly missed one, but I don't think so. This is from like 3-4 hours, probably even like 5 hours of testing and trying to see if new spawns were existing. But this is the best I can do when it comes to making the map, which is this. So you guys can see there's pumpkins scattered all over the map in Howling Lands. Of course, the map might look a little bit different when it comes to Live Realm because there is no doodle drawings, there is no like in-depth editing on this map. So there is that, be wary about that. But once you find a pumpkin head, what you do is you interact with it, click X, and then you go to the spot that's on the map that has the Headless Horseman icon, which I used in the graphic. Now once you go over there, you place the pumpkin by like the bridge area, and what will happen is music will start playing and whatnot. You might hear some laughter and whatnot, and the Headless Horseman literally comes charging at you. So if you are in a group and whatnot, be careful because he will literally charge at you if you're not like set to an adventure party and whatnot, or if you want a person specifically in Salt 1, be careful. Now, another thing is, if everyone gets out of the way of Headless Horseman, and when he's charging at you, let's just say no one's, in front of him or whatnot, he will despawn. He will charge a certain amount of distance, and then after that, he will despawn. So if you are trying to pull him, just be directly in the center of that area, and you can pull him pretty easily. So now that we got the spawning process out the way of how to spawn in Headless Horseman, let's go over his cheats. Now he does have a lot of cheats, and there were some cheats that don't have dialogue, so I'm just going to title him no cheat name, but he does have some unique cheats. So this boss does have 150k HP. Now the first cheat that he does have, and no in particular order, of course, it's just the way I've written it down, is this will be your grave. Your head will be my trophy. At the beginning of round 1, the boss will cast a doom and gloom. Now I believe it is a doom and gloom unless they changed it, and if you try replacing it, he will recast the bubble. So no cheesing around here and switching the bubble to a different bubble. It's a permanent doom and gloom that's staying on the field. And then he has another cheat, the Headless Horseman rides again at the end of round 1 and 6. And then of course this cheat does continue on the longer the rounds you do it. So every 5 rounds after that, the boss will proceed to cast an AoE Headless Horseman that applies a minus 30% weakness to all wizards. Now, this isn't a chromatic weakness or anything like that. It's just a straight up minus 30 weakness. So there is that if you are wondering how that works. Then he has a cheat where he laughs. This cheat dialogue happens when the boss casts Wraith or Monster Mash. On the second time he laughs, which is the second time he casts Wraith or Monster Mash, he will proceed to cast an AoE Headless at the end of the next turn. So it's basically a warning cheat. I guess this helps players if they don't understand how the boss works, but once you know the cycle, it's not really much of a worry. But just remember, once you hear him laugh for the second time, you'll understand that, hey, he's about to cast Headless Horseman like the next turn, so be wary about that. Then he has another cheat, don't lose your head, here have mine. At the end of certain rounds, which is basically 2 through 5 and so forth, the boss will proceed to cast a natural attack. And this will be on the wizard with the most blades. And then it will apply an infection to all the wizards. And this infection is a minus 10%. Now, if there is no players on the field that have blades, it will just target, I believe, the person with the most HP / random. I'm pretty sure it's random after that because it's supposed to target the one that has the most blades. But yeah, the whole gimmick is he puts infections on you. Then he has another cheat where death calls for the weak and unwary. At the beginning of the round, the boss will cast Mortality, which is the new spell that they added into Darkmoor, and this will do 100% max HP. So if you had like 10k, you're basically full or whatnot, he will just do all of your HP. And how this works is it will only do it if you have 6 or more negative charms. And I did leave a note that it might have some bugs on release, because when I did some testing, probably like the last day of test round, because I was like, oh, you know, might as well get some footage after I've tested everything in this fight. Well, as I was trying to go for the badge and testing out some stuff, if I have 6 or more negative charms and then I get healed in the same turn, what happens is the next turn I get hit with Mortality again, and then if I get healed again, he will just keep doing Mortality even though I have no negative charms, because I'm getting revived. So it might be a little bit buggy on release, just TLDR, be wary of that, of course. It'll be fixed in .1 update eventually. And then he has a cheat where, and death comes for you all. This just happens after a wizard dies. The boss will just say this cheat line. I believe it's only after he says, or after he casts Mortality. I haven't had him do it if I just randomly die in this fight, because it's kind of tough to just randomly die in this fight. You would purposely have to purge yourself every so often and let Headless Horseman keep hitting you. But I've only ever had them cast this after he does Mortality on somebody, so there is that. And then he does have 2 cheats that don't have a name, but he just does it. Is if a wizard applies a feint or a backdraft, the boss will cast a death cleanse ward, and this will cleanse ward all the traps that are placed on him. So let's say you trap stack a bunch and then you decide to put a feint on top. Well, what happens is he will remove the feint and all those other traps that are underneath. And if you're wondering, well, Almond, can I protect it? No, you cannot. He will check if he has a feint on him no matter what. So he'll remove it and then he'll cast it again to remove it again. So there is that same premise with backdraft and whatnot as well. And then he does have another cheat where it says literally no name, because it just does it, is if you do cast a dispel on him, any type of dispel, he'll just remove all of them. And this includes negative charms. So if you had negative charms placed on him and then all of a sudden you place a dispel on him, he'll remove the dispel and all the negative charms. So those are all of Headless Horseman's cheats. Now let's go into the fight strategy. We do have 2 separate strategies, one for fires where you can do Incendiate, and then you do have a storm strategy as well. If you want to make strategies for other schools, I'm just going to give you guys the basic premise on how to do it, and then you guys can just adjust and make your own strategies. But I feel like fire and storm kind of the most optimal just to save the most amount of rounds. So those are the strategies I'm working towards. So let's go over the fire strategy where you use 2 people that are fire wizards, and this will be a 2-round strategy. This is the fastest amount of rounds you can possibly do, Headless Horseman, and this is just for those people who are trying to min-max and whatnot. So you do want to use 2 fires in here. So what you're doing round 1 is you trap stacking, but we are incorporating one of the new changes with one of the spells, which is Brimstone. So Path B Brimstone, what it does now is it puts a 65% trap specifically on Path B, but it does lower damage. Well, you can also potent trap this. So if you potent trap this, it's a 75 trap. So we're using that to our advantage to put a 75 trap on the enemy because you can't feint. And this is basically a feint, but for fires. So we're using that to our advantage, and we're having person one use fuel. Reason being is it puts multiple traps. So the brimstone can eat one of the traps for its hit, do some extra damage, and then on top of that, put a 75% trap. Your damage on the brimstone and the keeper of the flame isn't counted towards this fight. So if you do like 5k or whatnot or 3k, that doesn't affect the head count. The head count by itself is still going to do 150k. So don't worry too much about, oh, do I need fire pins? Do I need myth pins? No, you don't have to worry about any of that. And then after that, of course, after the brimstone, the actual hitter is putting a fire potent trap because it needs pips. And then you have the last person, which you don't really need a decathlon deck for since it is a 2-round, but they do need to have Fire Trap learned, and they need to have a potent variation of that. So you need to get the item card potent and combine it with the Fire Trap, and you get another 50% trap. Just remember, all the traps are buffed as well in this update, so we are now having 40% traps, but when you potent trap them, they are now 50%, which are very strong. So this will make these types of boss fights a lot easier. Then on the second round, we're using another new spell that got changed, which is Keeper of the Flame. So Keeper of the Flame, what it does before, it was used to put a Myth Trap. Now it's doing basically chromatic feint traps at this point. So what it does is a hit and feint. You can use potent trap on this, but it would only increase it by 1%. Currently, with the issues currently going on with some chromatic spells, what happens is when you try to potent trap this, it only increases it by 1%. Hopefully tech gets around to it, and whenever that does get fixed, this will adjust the strategy just a tiny bit where you don't need that extra will cast. So that's why we're using that will cast, because it's kind of needed because of the Keeper of the Flame bug where you can't really potent trap it. And on top of that, this person also needs to have Willcast Hex or Willcast Curse. Either of those, there are pet talents that currently give that, and if you don't know what that is, just look it up on the wiki, or if you haven't, look at the slides, and those slides tell you where to get those. So you will need that for this 2-round strategy. And then you do have the other person putting a sharpened blade, 45% elemental blade specifically. It can even be a fire blade if they're a fire or whatnot, and they're going to be blading the hitter, so then they can use that on their head count. And then you're also casting Willcast Cleanse, because on the end of round 1, Headless Horseman puts a minus 30% weakness on everybody. And then he does cast Virulence round 1, but there is a chance of him still having the ability to cast Mass Weakness. So if he did cast Mass Weakness, and of course he will always cast as Headless, that Willcast Cleanse is there to protect you against that. So that's why we need that there on the off chance. And then of course after that, it's just head count, incendiate, very straightforward, and there's your fire strategy for this fight. Very simple. It does require some niche things, but this is why it's called the min-max strategy, where you're using certain spells that you have to train. Of course, you're gonna have to have a Keeper of the Flame on a fire, you're going to have a brimstone on somebody that is path B specifically, so you will need some niche things. So just remember when you're trying to do this. Then we can move on to the the other strategy, which I feel like more people are going to be doing, which is the Storm Hitter one. And you don't need the crazy amount of damage stats on this setup. You only need 216 storm damage as well as 51 pierce. And what you're doing is just simply trap stacking into a Thundering Djinn. You guys can see all the different buffs and whatnot, so it's kind of straightforward. The only thing that's different from this lineup, I guess you can say, is we're using Purge, and then on top of that, you do want to have person 1 have a pet that has Willcast Cleanse. On the off chance Headless Horseman does cast a weakness on both rounds, because he will apply a weakness or negative charm on round 1, then on round 2 he will as well, and then there is a chance of him doing mass weakness back to back on both rounds if for some reason that happens. So you want to have person 1 with a Willcast Cleanse pet, and just be there on standby with that Willcast Cleanse if it does happen. Now if it doesn't happen, you don't need that cleanse, you can just use Purge and you're good to go. And then you do want to have a person with the life mastery and use Toiret. Now this video is coming out before the Darkmoor update, I believe, so if you guys haven't definitely you use your spellements and unlock Tourette on multiple characters. The reason why I'm saying this is because once they or once the Dark Mode update comes out, you can only learn Tourette with spellements, or not spellements, with the training points. So you have to do training points all the way to Tourette. So if you are seeing this video ahead of time, I highly recommend that you unlock Tourette on multiple characters with spellements, and just to like prepare yourself for the update. So do that, and you want to use the fusion of Tourette because it puts 3 hots on the heal. Now, this setup would use Rebirth, but Rebirth was changed in the update from 3 hots to 2 hots. So, which kind of sucks. I mean, it forces players to use fusions. I'm hoping the spring update that gets changed to back to 3 hots, but we'll have to see. But for now, if we're doing anything with the Thundering Gen setup, you're gonna have to use Tourette fusion. So that might be used in a lot of strategies, and which kind of sucks. But we have to adapt as players and whatnot. And another card that we're using in this setup is Oni Shadow. Now, what Oni Shadow does, which is a pretty unique card, and I'm really in favor of this card, is it puts a brace on you, and then it puts 2 35 traps on the enemy. The reason why we're not using Potent Trap, because currently at the time I'm recording this, tech hasn't gotten around to it, and currently you can't Potent Trap that card because there's a brace, and there's some issues with the brace and the trap being in the same card, because there's a lot to go into tech wise, but that isn't working currently, so that's why we're just using regular Oni Shadow instead. And we're setting up that Jin for the kill, and it does like an absurd amount of damage, but that's why I lowered the damage to at least a minimum of 216, and you'll be good to go. That's how you do the Headless Horseman fight. Of course, you guys can make your own strategies and whatnot on how to do this fight. You can definitely use a myth to clear off weaknesses. You can even do King Art and then detonate the bomb or something like that. Specifically myth King Art. And you can do some other stuff too. There's a lot of variety of options that you can do in this fight, and honestly, it's a fun fight. I do like how there's certain things that are limited and certain things that are allowed. And it is a secret boss at the end of the day. You are going to be farming this for a mount and a hat. I think it took Edak around 21 runs to get the mount or something like that, which isn't that much if you think about it, if it was a 2-round fight. Now he did this when backdraft was allowed, so the animation time and whatnot was quicker, but obviously now backdraft's not allowed in this fight. So yeah, I mean, give it some time, you'll be able to get the Headless Horseman mount as well as the hat. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. But before I end off this video, there are 2 badges behind this boss, which is defeated a guy with no head, where you just defeat Headless Horseman. And there is another badge that you can get from here, but it is going to require some RNG, which is called Sickest Win Ever. Now, the badge requirement on this is defeat Headless Horseman with 5 infections on you. Now, if you remember how his cheats work, he does have a cheat where if you have 6 or more negative charms, he will cast Mortality. So you do have to play some RNG factor on this and pray when you have 5 weaknesses on you, and when you get rid of, or 5 negative charms and you get rid of a weakness, and you just have to pray he doesn't mass weakness the turn, or like the second turn after or whatnot, because if he does, you are basically dead. So there is some RNG aspect in this, and it's meant to be this way. So good luck trying to get that badge. You will have to play accordingly. You will have to time your rounds and whatnot. And when you want 5 infections on you, you have to wait till round 7. So realistically, the ideal round to even do this is technically round 8, because on the round 2 is where he does start his infections, but to have 5 infections on you, you have to wait till round 7. So once you get to round 7, at the end of the round, you'll have 5 infections. So on round technically 8 is where you want to kill, and you have to make sure you're always getting rid of your weaknesses on you. Now, I don't know if this badge is tied behind everyone having it, or just having one person with 5 infections. If it's just one person, it's pretty doable. What you can just do simply is just use King Arts. Path B King Arts are probably going to be your best friend in this fight, because you can clear and you can put traps on the enemy, and then on top of that put bombs. So that's definitely going to be the wave for this fight. But definitely that badge is going to be a little bit annoying to get with a little bit of RNG factor. But I mean, it's a pretty decent badge. It's called Sickest Win Ever. I kind of like the name of that badge, can't lie. But those are all the badges that you can get from Headless Horseman. And of course, as I said earlier, he does drop a mount, which is the mount that he's literally riding, the horse. And then on top of that, he does drop his pumpkin hat, which he is literally the Headless Horseman. Of course, he literally has the pumpkin as him, so like you can wear that, and that can be in a stitch as well, which I'm definitely going to be farming after I'm done with other videos. That is the plan. So that is it for this video. Hopefully I was able to help you guys with your Headless Horseman strategies. And yeah, it took a while just getting, or just writing all the cheats down and stuff like that, because this boss does have a lot of things in this fight, and it does prolong the fight quite a lot. And I even went back and forth with Roberto on certain cheats on this fight to make it a little bit more, I guess, deadly. Yeah, I wouldn't say deadly. I guess spooky is the best way to say it. But it's kind of cool that some of my suggestions were made in this fight, and I like that. For example, like you used to be able to change the bubble, but I'm kind of glad that you aren't able to change the bubble, just because it kind of ruins the atmosphere. You don't need a bubble if it's still a 2-round fight. Like the fact that it's a 2-round fight, it doesn't matter if you can't bubble or not. Like the wizards do too much damage nowadays. So there's that. But that is it for me. Hopefully the map is helpful. Hopefully the strategies are helpful. If not, make your own strategies, whatnot. That's completely fine. And yeah, so that is it for me. Leave a like, subscribe, all type of stuff, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.